Quality Collaborative. So the last 5 years, I've been at the sort of the other end of the spectrum. I've been in hospice, palliative care, advanced care planning, and just really saw the call for this volunteer opportunity and talked to Amy, and I'm hopeful that I'm able to join up as a coach. I certainly know the community and the work, and have some exposure and experience in QI, so I'm happy to be joining.
Great, thanks, Barbara.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Linda Cassidy. I'm a certified quality engineer, and actually Kate was one of the persons that got me involved with this through ASQ at the last section meeting. My background is that I have about 10 years experience in automotive quality control, and then I did a transition with my quality background into the education field, mainly in school districts as well as the Girl Scouts. So that's my background.
Great, thank you both for that quick intro. And right now, Kate is winning the award of recruiting, so pressure's on everyone. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Anyways, okay, so thank you. So, okay, so I'll quickly do my check-in about what I am seeing. I think overall, I've been sometimes seeing the light bulbs go on, I think, over the last week. With just, although we messaged a lot about quality improvement, what it means, what it's going to look like, I don't think all of our teams were there, and I still think we have a lot to go, but I've seen a couple light bulbs go off about sort of an aha that we're working through this process, and we may come up with new ideas and not just implementing sort of the original idea that teams had. I think I'm learning from teams that there's already a real drive to continue to connect, and we've gotten some requests already to provide some overviews of all the other team members in the collaborative, because there's interest for teams to quickly figure out how they can leverage the strengths of the other agencies. So I think that's pretty exciting.
That's great. Well, I think, I guess, is Brittany on the call today, Amy?
Oh, yeah. Sorry,
No,
Brittany's missing, so we can jump to Chad.
Great, Chad, go for it.
Yeah, so my thoughts were, I was actually pretty pleased with the initial aim statements that we got, just not knowing the teams very well. I guess the things that I'm struggling with is I don't know the people on the teams well enough yet to know if they're really buying into, hey, we're really going to test and try things different from what we said we wanted to do. But I was pretty happy with the aims. We didn't do our aim meeting with the 4 teams, took more than the hour of time that we had, so they didn't get very much process math coaching out of me last time. So trying to reach out and get in touch with them so we can maybe sit down and meet and do this face to face. I've had limited success on that front.
Mm-hmm.
So Chad, I just want to throw it out there. I want to say a thank you to you. I was copied on that email that you sent to everybody, and I just thought that was a real nice way to introduce yourself and to just make yourself available for folks. So I hope that they will reach out for in-person meetings. But I thought that was great.
Yeah, my experience has been that these things go a lot better if you do some team building on the front end. So meeting folks seems important to me. So we'll see how we do.
As you said, is there things we could do to help sort of get you connected or get you face to face? Do you feel comfortable taking that on your own, or at United Way, should we try to sort of broker those meetings or provide a venue or that kind of thing?
So far, I guess the answer is I don't know. I'll probably have a better feel probably by the middle of next week. So if my attempts are successful or if I need some help and some facilitation. So
great.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, let us know.
No problem.
Is Chris on the call today? Yes, right?
I saw him on.
Chris, are you with us?
Chris, have you muted yourself?
Oh, Chris was signed in and now is not.
Oh,
Maybe.
it looks like he's trying to get audio.
Okay. All right. Well,
So maybe we can jump ahead and come back.
Yeah. We'll jump to Jennifer, who is not on the call today.
I don't think she's on yet.
How about Kate?
Hi. Yeah, so I feel a little behind. I was out of town. I actually just got home an hour ago from vacation. And my phone popped up with this notification. I was like, oh, good. Here, kids, watch a movie. So I'm still actually catching up on emails, and I was unable to attend the last, Amy, I think I emailed you about that, the last call. So still catching up and looking forward to connecting with Chad a little bit to see how, I can support the efforts he's already initiated. And I already know a little bit about those organizations, so I think I'll be able to catch up pretty quickly.
Excellent. Welcome back. I hope it was a good vacation.
It was Disney, so.
We do have Kim's. I'm like looking at this name, Kimberly, but we do have Kim next.
Sorry, I just copied that from our.
No, it's okay.
That's my bad.
No, it's me being dense. I saw Kim. Kim, are you able to give a quick update or check in?
Oh, we just lost Kim.
I know. I don't know if looks like we just must be having audio issues today.
Chris, I know, we just lost Chris too. Okay.
Oh, okay. So Kim's about to call in. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Chris, if you also want to try calling in, or if you want to chat, that's also totally fine. Oh, great. Okay.
There you go. I think we're going to move. I think we're going to switch over to Cisco.
Okay.
Change subscriptions in the long run. And by long run, I mean like next week.
Okay. Great. Mike is not on the call today. And so that leaves Sherry. Are you with us?
We're missing Connie.
Connie,
yes,
right.
I'm muted.
There we go.
Okay. I was like, wait, I'm after Chris. No, that's all right. No, it's fine. It's funny. We got through our aim statements on our first coaches call, but so I reached out to start process map discussions and also, set up some one-on-one time. One of my teams totally responded. We're working on process maps. Another team, my contact, she was out of town at a conference all week, and we're scheduled for sometime next week. And then the last team, no response to the email. I had 2 attempts, so I might need help brokering what's the status with that team, because I'm a little concerned. It's a team with one person, and I don't know if the bandwidth is right for her at this time, but we can talk about that more in detail offline.
Okay.
Chris is joined, by the way. Sorry.
Hey, all right.
You want to go ahead and do your check-in, Chris?
Sure. Yeah. I was going to echo what Chad said. My desire is to meet with the teams individually or in person, because I think that's also good as well. But it's going to be a challenge just with my current job and current workload. But I'm going to do my best that I can. I was very pleased with their aim statements for my 3 teams. I felt they kind of got the essence of what we were going for. I had a call with one of the teams today on the kind of the beginnings of the process map, and even though they really hadn't, had exposure to that necessarily in their current work life, they were able to kind of articulate and be able to kind of get the basics of it, and so I feel good about again about some of the teams. So I will continue to. I have a meeting on Monday with 2 other teams individually to kind of see how they're doing and how they're progressing. But generally speaking, feel pretty good. I do have one question on the process map. I'm assuming it's future oriented, right? What they plan to do versus what their current state is, or I just want to clarify that they actually had that as a question.
That's a great question. I would say it could be either or. So
Okay.
we have some teams that are looking, who already have kind of an intervention process or pathway that they utilize with various clients or families. And so, sort of mapping the current state might be really helpful for identifying bottlenecks or whatever. But then we also have a lot of teams that are proposing a new intervention and really kind of designing something new. And so maybe like more idealized design process map would be helpful for them, that they would then like to go and test out with a couple families and then refine as they go. So it just, you'll know better than me in the nature of your team, which is which, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of where they were at. They were planning on a process, so. Okay, great. No, again, feel pretty good where we're at. Amy, I may need some help with the one team.
Reggie, yep, saw that. Yeah. I can connect. I don't mind taking that one on in the long run if you need me to.
Okay. Yeah, we have a planned call for Tuesday, but I just think in the long term there might be some options, challenges there. So.
Yeah. Yep. That one team had a predictable comment, I would say, on the all team call on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So Amy, this is Connie. Question just from a coaching perspective. How many attempts are fair game before we kind of raise and say, hey, let's call in Amy and Brandon?
It's up to everyone. I am more than comfortable if you think it's best to loop me in very early, but I would say if after 2 outreaches you're not getting feedback, for sure loop me in at that point, because I don't want you to be spending tons of time with that follow-up when you're not getting it. So it's really up to you. Some have sort of like early on this, Chris just did that. It was sort of seemed like it might be an issue and loop me in right away to the conversation. So I have told all the teams that although there's primary coaches, I can be a backup as well. So does that help?
Good.
No, yeah.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Totally.
Okay, great. Do you want to go back to Kim for update?
Yeah, Kim, welcome onto the phone.
Hey, here I am. Yep, sorry guys, I was talking away and nobody could hear me. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, good. All right. So I was unable to be a part of the coaching call, so due to a crisis here at the hospital, or worked with my unit here at the hospital. So I was a little dismayed about that. But my plan is to set up individual times with all of my people, because I think it's important, much like Chris and Chad said, to spend individual time with them. So that's my plan. I got the slides from Amy. So I'm going to send them individual appointments, introduce myself, and plan to work with them on both. I think their aims looked good, but I want to start the process map with them because I was on the all call. I want to start doing that with them right away now. So that's where I'm at.
Great. And so you haven't had a chance, Kim, to touch base with them, or you have, and you're still.
I have not.
Okay.
I got I think I wasn't able to join my first pod call, where they were going to introduce me because I had something come up here at the hospital that I had to be at. So I'm going to reach out to them individually and introduce myself. Amy sent me the notes and let them know that I would be contacting them to set up an appointment.
Wonderful. That's great. Great. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I'm sure as time unfolds, we'll have obviously more to talk about, and certainly I think we'll start to see kind of a spreading out of the teams in terms of some that are moving quickly and sort of progressing and feeling comfortable with some of the methods and tools that we're suggesting to them, and others who are going to lag behind or disengage. And I think in a collaborative that you kind of figure that out as you get going. So, but definitely do feel free to call on myself or Amy anytime, and anything we can do to sort of help support you or make sure that those connections are as strong as they can be. We are more than happy to do.
Okay, we skipped Sherry, and Jen jumped up. Jen jumped on too, so we can go back to her as well.
Sorry, Sherry.
That's okay. Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot to report. I have reached out. I have a couple calls set up. One, no response so far, but I'm going to call her because it might just be an email thing. So unfortunately, like I said, I don't have too much to report. I thought I would try to talk to them first and then try to set up, depending upon their eagerness, because I think there's a different sense of maturity in my groups. Some probably haven't even hardly done anything, and some of them are already doing process mapping. So, but one of the things I was going to ask, and I mentioned this, I think, to you, Amy, is if there are examples of process maps that are pretty realistic, not just the generic, this is what a process map looks like, that might be helpful to people to understand what we're looking for.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So Brandon's used one in the recent all-team call, which that slide deck is online. I shared too a link to a specific slide deck that was from a storyboard that a classroom around classroom instruction. I don't know if you got that. And then I shared I thought I responded back to you, Sherry. I'm sorry if that got lost in my draft.
I think you.
Okay, no, yeah.
I think you said that it did, but I was thinking probably not only my groups, but probably everybody. If it was just here's a resource of process map examples.
Yeah. So you're right. So if we think more helpful, can totally send them out. Actually, I still have to write the email that goes out today. But as teams, I was sharing with each team their slide deck. I was adding those links to at least two of them. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm not quite sure about the organization of like resources. If it's a SharePoint site with resources, and I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who thinks that their agencies could use examples, but
no, it's a great point, and we can certainly work to pull some examples together. I
personally am trying to get more organized, and so if anybody has clues about how to get more organized, because there's a lot of PowerPoints, and then there's emails, and then there's links, and I'm just imagining the more organized we can be, the easier it is for everyone. I've been saving all this up into my own Box account, which is my way of trying to organize, but
yeah, for teams, we've been specifically trying to, and you're right, I mean, I think we have a lot of work to do in this area, but any primary document that they see or a webinar, we post on Child Poverty Collaborative's website, and they're in chronological order. And then I would say the other primary way we're sending things is we're trying to limit it to mainly like a Friday email that provides copies of things. But I think it's a great point. We don't have a centralized Dropbox or shared folder that teams could go back and could access. So that's, I think, something to put on a to-do list.
So anyway, I haven't made much progress. I'm sorry, but I do have a few appointments set. So I'll continue to try to get with the rest and then hopefully get to meet with them.
Great.
Depending on their appetite for coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I would be very curious, just along that lines, Amy, if people have a preference for like Dropbox or Google Drive or something like that, where we might have a shared coaching, folder or something that we can, sort of share things with each other as we go. Is there a preferred sort of platform, I guess, that people like to use?
This is Sherry. I'm most familiar with Box, but they're all similar, I think. So.
I don't have a strong preference, whatever works for the team.
Yeah, ditto. I'm thinking Dropbox first, but yeah, they are very similar.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm more than willing to set up a Dropbox for us. I think organization for teams will be interesting too, to check preference. I personally know in some of my work I've tried shared drives before, and on an agency level there's a lot of obstacles sometimes with firewalls.
Mm-hmm.
Even for Google products. So I think that's something we can keep exploring with the teams of what's the best place to centralize information for them.
Well, I think, yeah, that's great. And yeah, one thing we might want to do at some point, Amy, maybe on one of these calls too, is just like maybe do a little tutorial of where everything is on the website. So
sure,
at least for the presentations and stuff like recordings and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yep, great idea.
All right, did I miss anybody else?
Did Jen share?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm having lots of technological difficulties.
No, I think we were having phone issues earlier, so not you.
Well, yeah, I was calling in the wrong number. So I guess we're just kind of doing updates. I mean, I don't have much of an update either. I've connected with Community Matters. Brittany is connecting with the other team on our pod, and I haven't had a coaching session with them. We had a call scheduled for yesterday, but it got canceled on both our ends. And so I am just got something back from Mary to schedule for Monday. So I've seen their aim. It's kind of broad around improving self-sufficiency. So just want to learn a little bit more and what they're gearing for.
And just Jen, that's very helpful. I'm just curious, of everybody who's on the phone today, how many people had a chance to make it to the all-team call earlier in the week?
I was on. This is Jen.
Okay.
Chris was on.
Sherry was not.
Yeah, Chad was not this week.
Kim and I was on.
Connie was on.
Great. Wonderful. Well, for those who weren't, maybe what we could do is circulate the slides. One of the things I tried to do was to try to highlight a couple of the common sort of issues that came up with AIMS. And so if some of you are working with your teams or thinking about that, it might be helpful to kind of see the examples that were there. So we can certainly do that.
Yeah, and I found that very helpful, Brandon. And the way, some of the aims were pretty far off, but the way you found things in them that were positive around like scope, that has really good scope, but what are you aiming to achieve? It was really helpful to see kind of how they came out in terms of where there were areas that they could improve on.
That's good to hear. That's great. Oh yeah, and Amy's just posted a link to YouTube where there's a recording. So, well, that's great. It's on YouTube because then you can fast forward just to the relevant parts. Awesome.
Yeah, it's both. So the link is the PowerPoint, but it has embedded in the PowerPoint is a slide with the link to YouTube. So you can choose to just look at the slides or click over to the video.
Cool. Thank you, Amy.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, I know time is precious, particularly on a Friday afternoon, and I really appreciate you guys sharing some updates. I'll be very excited, certainly as teams dig into the sort of improvement journey more fully and really start to use some of these tools to learn with each other. But today we thought we'd like take a few minutes to talk about our data collection process. And I put that as a ... question mark because I think one of the things that Amy and I want to do is explore a process with you and then get some critical feedback about whether it's good, bad, you're indifferent, what you would change about it, and so forth. So, Amy, will you advance the slides for me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So, just generally speaking, in sort of a collaborative or networked environment, I sort of think of three different sort of tranches of measurement as being really important on the improvement journey. The first column is the sort of content of projects, and certainly in a coaching capacity and with your teams, there'll be an opportunity to develop sort of process level and maybe even process step level, PDSA level measures consistent with the aim statements that these teams have arrived at. And at a collaborative level, we certainly have a sense of measurement from the perspective of our income tool and the Roma tool that we're busy trying to test out and get people to adopt. But what I think from a collaborative level, what's really interesting to us is the engagement process. So how well teams are really engaged in the journey. And so I wanted to introduce the project progress score to you today, and then talk about some other measures that we think are helpful. So will you click one forward for me? One of the tools that I've used in a lot of different collaboratives and with a lot of different projects is sort of a generic project progress score rubric that is depicted here on the slide, and it's basically a 0 to 5 scale that moves in half-point increments. And each increment has an operational sort of definition or rubric associated with it that allows the team and their coach to kind of say at any given moment in time where they think they are. And it starts with like intention to participate in the collaborative and to develop a team and so forth. And it moves through to planning, to getting some activity going, getting some PDSA cycles going, collecting some baseline data, to getting some modest improvement, to getting significant improvement in terms of maybe seeing a strong shift on a run chart or on a control chart or something like that, to getting sustainable improvement to where that shift is maintained, and then to sort of outstanding results. And so there's this rubric here, and what we're kind of hoping is that we'd be able to, on a monthly basis, get a project progress score from each team. And we would be able then to track any individual's team's progress over the course of the collaborative to see which teams are, moving more slowly than others, or which teams are accelerating very fast. And we can, of course, through conversations with you all and with them, try to figure out why in either case, and then really try to understand the collaborative as a whole. Are we making progress as a whole towards our aim of moving 500 families over the next 18 months or so? And so that's kind of one big thing that we want to look at. There's a couple of other things that we want to look at. So if you click ahead again, there's a few other sort of interesting measures that we think are valuable, and I think eventually we'd love to have a dashboard for each team that doesn't just have the project progress score, but also tracks like maybe on a weekly basis, or monthly, depending, the number of new sort of PDSA cycles that they're engaged in, the number of team meetings they are having, the amount of time they're spending, engaged on their improvement journey. And not that any of that is in and of itself qualitative. It's not stuff that really sort of reveals the strength or weakness present in the improvement journey, but but it does sort of tell us a little bit about whether or not people are being effortful in terms of their commitments to the collaborative and to the aim that they are trying to accomplish. And so if we see that a team hasn't done a PDSA in a month, or they haven't had a team meeting in this month, then there's an opportunity to engage a conversation, and Amy or myself or somebody else, you all can have a conversation with them and try to figure out why and so forth there. So these are some other things that we think would be valuable to have on a team by team level, and then also for the whole collaborative, we can aggregate and sort of roll it up and kind of see how we're doing and have some conversations around those at learning sessions or on all team calls, that kind of thing. So if we click forward again.
Ooh, I get to switch
So
quick.
yeah, so Amy's going to take over for a second, and she's created like a straw man tool for collecting some of this information, and we wanted to run it by all you and see kind of what you think. And it's basically a Google survey, but Amy, you have better explanation than I ever could. So
Yeah, so I just threw this together, and this is again just a straw man. So we can send it out we can get some ideas now for change, and also just have everyone take a look at it for improvements. But we were thinking sort of a monthly survey for coaches to complete. You know, you could just come in and complete it for the previous month. So just an example, just run through it real quick. But basically, it gives the opportunity to record most of, mainly the progress around the team and some information around coaching. So once you enter your name, you'd have the opportunity to provide information about a team with their name, provide where they are using the rubric that Brandon just previewed, using a drop-down box. And then for now, I was thinking it'd be helpful to sort of track completion of the deliverables during this time period. So that could be checked as teams begin to work through the deliverables. And then I threw in some ideas around just trying to estimate, sort of time spent that you provided coaching with them. So I don't know if these are right, but sort of thinking through just different time increments throughout the month, then it would be, and then a method of sort of what was your primary method for coaching with that team, so we can understand what the connection point is. Does it tend to be sort of very more intense one-on-one, either in person or conference calls? Is anyone doing group, or is it more of a back and forth correspondence? And then it provides you opportunities for notes. If there's anything outstanding that you need, to signal, you'd want to add to it. And then lastly, because as coaches right now we're still working with more teams, if you have additional teams you work with, then it will just create a new section and duplicate all of those questions, but allow you to do it for a second team. And it has these sections repeated 4 times. But it's just thoughts on sort of the questions. Is it best to gather this monthly? Feedback on how we can help collect this information.
So this is Chris. It seems relatively straightforward, and I think monthly would probably be the right. That seems right at this point. Yeah, I think anything more frequent than that sounds like a lot of, I don't know if that might be too much. So I think monthly would be right.
This is Jen. I think monthly is easy enough if you send us a link to do a survey. I'm wondering on the progress on deliverables, if it could be more of like a red, yellow, green. So maybe they haven't completed per se, but we still think we're still trying to get them to work on it and refine. I don't know if that would be helpful.
In general, they're on track.
Yeah, as opposed to
sort of an overview.
Like, they might have a process map, but maybe they're still doing a lot of work on it, or it needs more. I don't know if that would be helpful.
I think that's a great idea.
I have a question.
And then I
know
you add
were,
that. Go ahead.
I was going to say you're recruiting more coaches. So I'm wondering, will those coaches get some of these teams that are currently assigned to us?
It's a great question.
Because, for example, like I have a couple, or at least one that haven't been able to contact with. So like that might be a good person or a good agency to go to a new coach, because I don't even have a relationship with the people yet, for example. But I'm just wondering how you're distributing, if we're going to keep distributing the agencies among the coaches if the coach number keeps changing.
That's a good question. So far, Linda, who I have assigned, she's the first coach that I've assigned new teams to, were my team. So it was sort of all my extras. I guess Barb will be a good test for this. She was going to take a look at the team list, knowing and seeing who sort of is carrying a bigger load right now. Sherry, you're one. So, but that feedback would be really helpful if you don't feel like you've connected well, or if coaches feel closely connected with a team that would want to make sure that we don't disturb that relationship. But I would have a conversation before we formally say, is this the right match? With whichever coaches are currently working or connected to that pod. Does that sound right?
That sounds great. I was just thinking, as part of this collecting your data, I don't know how you're going to get this back to you, but obviously thinking about that is going to be.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, and Amy, I don't know if you thought this through, but we would just maybe send a link to this survey to you once a month to your email or something. And all the information is just dumped into a Google spreadsheet that we can then see and work with.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts that people have about it, or things you would add to it or take away from it? Things that have worked for you in the past that might be helpful? Certainly, if you do have them.
Can we send a link out shortly after this meeting so I can maybe read through in a little more detail? So the thing that I see, this is Chad, sorry, that may not be there, is something a little more clear on what's the team engagement like.
Well, that's a good. That's a good point.
Engagement,
But
yeah.
I only looked through it in 10 seconds, so I don't really know if I missed something.
It's not.
Did we put something in on that? Like,
we don't have anything like around. No, we don't really, except we just have this rubric. But I think at this point, I don't know if that's enough.
So at some point, like as we move into more of a testing phase, we might want to add something like number of PDSAs completed by the team this month or something, and have a drop down.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, Chad, are you sort of talking more about that idea of like buy-in to QI, not so much just the
how are
not
we
so much
doing
just
as far as
yeah.
building teams and getting people engaged in the process, right, of how we're going to do this, right? Because this is a lot of milestones, right? So, but not necessarily, and the softer things are harder to measure, right? But how much effort are they putting into working in the new process? Which is kind of hard to measure.
That's good. That's really good. We could put in a little section. Maybe it's just we could have like a drop down plus like a free text box where we could describe the engagement or problems with engagement or any sort of things there. I mean, Chad, would you think of something like, a team is highly engaged, somewhat engaged, not engaged, something like that?
Yeah, like a 1-3-7-9 type, nothing crazy, just
Well, that brings up a great question. Is there something like similar ever planned for the actual participants at some point? Maybe not the same thing, but same concept, like where do they think they're at?
I was actually thinking about that. So, I think as they turn in deliverables, I think it'd be helpful to add a very similar, like, sort of survey that's in their slide deck.
So yeah, that's great, and I think we could. That's interesting because I'm happy for us to like get 2 different data points, one from you all and one from the teams. But I was actually thinking you could co-construct it with the team. I mean, I think it's totally fine for the team to say we think we're at a 2.5, and for you to say, push back and say, well, I look at the rubric and I think you're at a 2. So kind of what am I missing? Tell me what's there, and kind of have that conversation. It's definitely not meant to be like a judgment on them. It's just like supposed to be a sense check of where they are. I'm happy for them to direct that assessment as well. But I don't know, Amy, would you rather have 2 data points, one from the team and one from the coach?
I was thinking less about their maybe progress status, and more about where they think their buy-in is.
Yeah, like a separate survey thing that they would do after maybe that's already planned to do that anyway. It's some sort of, hey, how are you feeling, where you at, kind of thing.
Type of a thing. And I was actually thinking about that. So maybe the timing is not right yet, Brandon, but I was thinking it. Yeah, I was definitely thinking about it when we thought about with this chart, thinking about to like where they feel like with their sponsor versus sort of their team lead versus sort of their frontline staff. Because I've seen that in the past. But I wonder if I think at this point it might be too soon.
Fair enough. No, but we could do that. We could certainly do that either monthly or maybe once a quarter or something. We could kind of check in with them and say, how you feeling, kind of thing. The other thing, one of the questions I do have for all of you all just is, does this feel like too heavy? Do you feel like we're collecting too much if you were to fill this out once a month or something? Because that's definitely something we would like to avoid, is overburdening you all with that kind of thing.
This is Kate. I'm fine with filling that out. It doesn't seem like it's too much.
Yeah, once a month seems right.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah, totally agree. And one thing I was thinking maybe something to capture from the coaches is what barriers you ran into for the month, because just, we all have our day jobs and responsibilities, but then did we run into barriers as coaches, or did the team run into barriers? That might tell you just kind of where the hurdles are in doing this type of work.
Excellent. Yeah. And so would you prefer that to be like a free text box where you could just sort of list them, or?
Yeah, and it might be easier to maybe have some broad categories, like this top of my head, but conflicting schedules this week, or just some broad areas that you'll probably
so you could
hear
have
and
like
see.
Yeah, logistics, or you could have like team engagement, or you could have like technical barriers or something like that.
Right, and then maybe there's an other box, and someone can just type what they need.
I like that. Yeah. Awesome. Super helpful. We'll definitely send a link around for everybody to take a closer look, but we just kind of wanted to preview it, and certainly any other thoughts you have, send them through, and we'll make the adjustments there. But yeah, great.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
I just thought
Amy likes to work in real time.
I'm like already gonna edit. No, I'm gonna switch over, but we'll send it as is now, and I'll tweak with it, tweak with it tweak it, gosh, end of the day, next week, and I'll send out a link to this call too in this PowerPoint.
Awesome.
This is Sherry. I was just going to say, I think this is all great comments, but one of the things I think collecting the data is important because we can provide insights, but the agencies are really the drivers of the process, right? And it's their responsibility to get this stuff done. We're to help them, correct?
Correct.
So they should be in the driver's seat. And if they're not getting help that they need, that's, kind of a poor reflection on us. That's how I'm looking at it, though. So whatever we do and however we message it, I don't want them to think, well, we couldn't get our stuff done because my coach is not available. Well, you need to speak up if your coach isn't available so you can get more help or another coach or whatever else. Things are going to happen, but I just want to be sure that ownership of the process is on the right and is always reflected on the right parties. So that's kind of the beauty of having maybe two surveys of so that they don't even have to know the coaches have a survey actually, but their survey of their engagement, their commitments, their energy that they're dedicating. Anyway, I'm sorry.
No, I think those are great thoughts. I think that's a great, just perspective that we need to make sure, right, that we're, I was going to say, not letting teams get away with not driving, right? It is their project.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Moving forward, I guess I just wanted to I think you guys are all kind of aware, and from your comments, it seems like you're on top of the teams that you have had a chance to interact with. But certainly coming out of the call, I think we realized out of the first set of coaching calls that we thought we could accomplish more than we could in the hour. And I think the universal experiences was that it took the whole hour to do some of the AIM statement review and feedback. And so we definitely feel like there are teams that could benefit from continuing to revise their AIM statements. So I really do love the feedback about maybe sort of putting a little bit of around the deliverables on our data collection device to kind of say where people are at with regard to how strong we perceive their use of these things to be. And the next thing is coming up is developing process maps, and that's kind of how we're structured as a collaborative. But I guess one thing I wanted to say is that you all are experienced coaches, and you all spent times with teams, and we're recommending that people start with a name statement, make a process map, do some sort of baseline data investigation, and get a sense of their system and where things are working, where they're not. And so we're going to be sort of proposing a particular sequence for building out the charter. But as experienced coaches, if you feel like the process map isn't the best thing for them to do right now, a better thing would be to do this other thing. I think I'm certainly open to that and would trust your judgment as you work with teams to push them forward. I think in the long term, we would still love, from a building of a charter perspective, to have a lot of these deliverables in place and to feel that the teams, are sort of on track, that they're well focused and have good sort of baseline information available to them as they move into a testing phase. But I hope, I guess my intention is just to say, I hope you don't feel overly constrained or feel like things are overly prescriptive. Certainly, you should make the coaching moves that you feel are best, given the team that's in front of you. But in terms of the deliverables that we'll be messaging out and so forth, that's kind of where we're at right now. Amy, do we have one more slide, maybe? Oh yeah. These were, so just to the idea of examples, and we can certainly pull together some more examples, but this was what was presented on the call this week. So for those who weren't there, these were examples of processes that organizations might take a crack at creating for themselves. And so these are just meant to be inspirational and to help people think about the work they do as a process. So if that's helpful to you, then that might be great for driving conversations. And I think that's it. I mean, I don't know if we have a next call yet, but Amy, do we?
We do. I should have put it in.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like I said, I'm being dense today. So we do have another call, and it is in a month's time. And so I will right after this call, I'll send out the calendar invite. But it is, if this time still generally works for folks, we were planning to have a call Friday, November 3rd. At the same time, from 4 to 5 p.m. Does Friday this late in the day still an okay time, or is it worth considering a doodle?
This is Kate. That works fine for me.
Thank you, Amy.
This is Jen. I'll defer to the rest of the group because I can always follow up with you.
This is Kim. It works for me.
Ditto.
Brilliant. Well, I just again want to say a big thank you, and certainly please don't hesitate to reach out to Amy and I, either with thoughts about how to improve the data collection tool, thoughts on how we can make these calls highly functional and relevant for you all, and certainly with any needs that you have in terms of interacting with your teams or resources or space or whatever. I think we definitely want to make sure you have everything you need going forwards. Thank you. I know it's late on a Friday and you guys are probably anxious to get out the door, and I want to encourage you to do so. So Amy, do you have any final thoughts for everybody today?
No, I'll just quickly ditto that. Feel free to loop me in when you need support, or if you come up on sort of sticky issues with teams, we are here to provide as much support.
Awesome. Great. All right. Well, any last thoughts from anybody else? Otherwise, I think we're happy to wrap up. All right. Well, stay well, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Do the same. Thanks.
Thank you too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.